They always say that if you blink, your kids will be grown before you know it. But this is fucking ridiculous. So Interstellar tells the story of a man trying to balance his mission to save humanity with his promise to return to his daughter. Welcome back to the Christopher Nolan review series, guys. If you haven't seen it, I've already dropped my Christopher Nolan ranking with all of his movies, including Tenet. My Tenet spoiler-free review is already up. That's been up for about a week or so now. So I'm doing things a little bit backwards, very much Christopher Nolan-esque. Because I ran out of time, but now we're getting back on track. We're going to get Interstellar done, and then very soon after that, we will get Dunkirk, and then we can wrap this bitch up and move on to something else. So, Interstellar was one of the movies that I was looking most forward to rewatching in this review series because it was the first Christopher Nolan movie that I watched and initially had kind of a bad experience with. Mostly because of things that happened in the third act that, to me, didn't really work, didn't really appeal to me, seemed like they were way too confusing and way too convoluted for their own good, which disappointed me because everything that came before that was so good in my opinion. So Interstellar was one of those movies where I went, okay, am I gonna have one of those magical second viewings where things come together and I actually like it more, or am I gonna watch this and go, nope, it's still a pretty mixed bag. So starting right off with the positives for Interstellar, the main one is that this is by far Christopher Nolan's most emotional movie. Apparently there's a big criticism out there that Christopher Nolan's an emotionless director to where his characters don't have a whole lot of emotion, his stories don't have a whole lot of emotion. I personally think that's ridiculous, but enough people believe it to where I guess this time whenever he went to go do Interstellar, he said, okay, fine, I don't have enough emotion, here's some emotion for you, and he definitely delivers that. The whole core story here about Matthew McConaughey's character being basically elected to go onto this suicide mission, possibly to go off into the stars, into another dimension to try to find this habitable planet to save humanity, while at the same time having to abandon his children for an indeterminate amount of time. Could be a couple of years, could be a couple of decades, could be their entire lives. And that is just a very emotional concept in and of itself, to where it worked much more for me the second time, because between my first viewing and my second viewing, I myself became a father. So it's a lot more, a lot more resonance for me. When I watch this story, I put myself in my position of Matthew McConaughey and I'm like, ugh, fuck humanity, I'm not going anywhere.
I have no idea when you're coming back. I'm coming back.
But Nolan does an incredible job at balancing this science fiction tension of just the situation about this ticking time bomb that is Earth, that is humanity, even the natural occurrences that come onto these planets that are very much a danger, like the waves in the water planet, or a character that we'll talk about in a little bit that's somewhat spoilery, so I'll try to kind of give a warning, in the second planet that's a very big threat. But underneath all of that is just the loss of time, the threat of losing all of his time that he has with his kids, to where you just land on some planet and the time lapse is so weird to where an hour down there is like 10 years on Earth, and you have to make this decision of like, okay, is it worth losing a decade with my family to go down and possibly find something on this planet? Which just raises the stakes so much more. Not only is there physical threats on this planet, but if we fuck around, if we screw up, if we can't get off in time, all of the repercussions back home on Earth seem almost even more grave than whatever the hell is waiting for us on this planet. And you get these scenes that are just incredibly acted, like with Matthew McConaughey after his first planet and their first screw up, where he finds out that he's just lost a couple of decades with his kids, and he goes in, and where he was just getting, one or two little video messages trickling in from this entire year or so that he's been in cryostasis. He comes back on from this planet and he has like 20 something years of videos that are just waiting there for him to go through, and seeing his kids grow up to be teenagers, to be adults, to have kids of their own, to have lost kids of their own. And the emotion on his face in that scene just sells all of it. Just like this bittersweet happiness and misery balance that he's going through, where he's happy to see his kids, happy to see them, grow up and experience things, but just crushed and agonized that he wasn't there for it and he'll never get that time back. And I kind of just touched on it, but there's also just really great performances all around. Matthew McConaughey, I mean, he's one of the best. This was during the time whenever pretty much everything that he was touching was a fantastic performance and a really damn good movie. The Reconnaissance, I believe they called it for a while there, so he's awesome. You have Anne Hathaway, who is very good in her role. I have some criticisms of her character later on, but she's good. Michael Caine, I mean, all the typical people are here. You even got Casey Affleck in a really good role. It's his son. That's an emotional kind of weight. And then you have Jessica Chastain as the daughter, who again is the emotional weight for Matthew McConaughey's character. And she's very good too, because while the child of Murph is certainly the one that you think of with all this, time losing and we're going to lose time with Murph. But then as Jessica Chastain kind of grows into the role, she kind of becomes the hero of the story to a certain degree. So being that the story shifts and has more focus on her by the end, she carries the movie very well as well. Then you got special effects, which I believe this movie won the Oscar for, and deservedly so, because it's incredible. I mean, as soon as Christopher Nolan says, hey, I'm going to do this 2001 Space Odyssey type movie, you're like, oh, that's gonna look fucking incredible. And it does. The spaceships look great, the space station looks great, the special effects on the planets and the black holes are awesome. When you get into these different worlds that they go to, like this world that's just completely covered in water and there's this huge perfect storm shit coming, and then you get this ice planet, and it's incredible. Visual effects, top notch in Interstellar. And like pretty much every movie that I've talked about in this Christopher Nolan review series, Nolan's a very thematic storyteller, so when you have the power of love and everything that's kind of weaving in the story, especially with all the emotional character relationships, especially between Matthew McConaughey and his kids, it does power through the movie very well. So speaking on themes, it's another one of his movies, another one of him and his brother's scripts that is just very thematically rich. And then of course, I do like the fact that the movie has a couple of twists and turns, a couple of little surprises in store for you. Matt Damon's character was actually a part of the movie that I really enjoyed. I think I've read a couple other reviews in the past that said that he was kind of out of nowhere and that whole section of the movie feels like a different film. I would disagree with that. I actually think that kind of the exploration of the human survival instinct is really interesting as far as this character, where he's this world-renowned guy. He was the leader of the first mission where everybody dispersed and went to different planets in hopes that one of them would find one, and their mission was to send off a beacon if they found a habitable world. And then on the second wave, which was Matthew McConaughey's mission, they would go and find that planet that has the beacon. Matt Damon's character sends off this beacon, and you quickly find out over this really tense sequence where he walks off into nowhere with Matthew McConaughey that there's actually no chance of humans habiting this planet. He just wanted somebody to save him because he was isolated, he was scared, and his own self-preservation trumped the preservation of the rest of humanity. And it's just a very tense little act of the movie there that I actually think makes this movie, it changes the pace up quite a bit, to where if you're not typically a sci-fi nut, if you're not somebody that is typically interested in, astronomy and stuff like that, which I'm honestly not, when you get to this part of the movie, it throws in a little thriller stuff in there, changes the pace up a little bit, keeps the movie moving at a nice pace, and it gets to the point where it has more than one flavor to throw at you, so the movie feels very much well-rounded, and it has a couple little subgenres thrown in there, not just sci-fi. Moving on to the mixed, the whole explanation of, the ghost, and Matthew McConaughey being the one that gave all of this information to Murph at the beginning act of the movie, and all of that stuff. I hated it when I first saw this movie. That was honestly the biggest thing that pushed this movie all the way down to near the bottom of my ranking at the time of release. It worked a little bit better for me upon rewatch. I think that it really depends on how much you're buying into the theme of the love and the power of love and how that kind of transcends these dimensions and everything. If you kind of hone into what they're going for with that story, it's easier to kind of forgive the logic a bit and just understand thematically what they're going for with this entire sequence in this Rubik's Cube dimension crazy shit. But I still don't think it's the best way to end the movie. I still think there's a much less convoluted, much less crazy, much less Nolan way to wrap up this story and to make all the things at the beginning tie into the things at the end. It's not the best ending that this movie could have had, in my opinion. I think that it's actually my least favorite part of the film, and that's not the best thing to walk out on, is like really enjoying the movie, and then the last 15-20 minutes you're kind of down a little bit. So I liked it better. That's why it's in the mix. Maybe a third or fourth rewatch, I'll be like, hey, totally works for me now. I'm over it. But it's definitely a part of the movie that I feel like there's a better version out there. Now moving on to the negatives, I really only have one, and this is a personal thing. I had mentioned in my Dark Knight Rises review that I really like Anne Hathaway's acting ability, but as a person, she kind of annoys me. Like, I've seen press conferences and I've seen interviews with her, and just personality-wise, she just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And I feel like that comes through in her character here. I mean, her character is just very scientific and proper, and all of her dialogue is just very, you know, particular with the way that she talks, and almost to a point where she's very selfish at some point, to where even though she ends up being proven right, there's a segment of the movie where they have choice A, which is at the time with the information they have, better, more logical choice. And then you have choice B, which is not the logical choice, not the better choice for this suicide mission that literally has one chance to get it right. But there's somebody on this planet that Anne Hathaway has some feelings for. So let's just say fuck everything. Let's just throw all caution to the wind about the fate of humanity, and let's go here. As soon as you get to that point of her character, I'm like, yeah, I don't like you. And they try to wrap it around at the end where Matthew McConaughey is sent by Murph, like, go be with her. And that's the note you kind of end the movie on, is him going to eventually be with her to, I guess, start a new version of humanity on this planet. And I'm like, are you going for a romantic thing there, or you're saying Matthew McConaughey is going to go be with her and now they're going to be like Adam and Eve in this new planet, or he's just going to go there and they're going to be platonic partners? It's something about her character, none of that works for me. But with all that being said, guys, especially if you've seen my Nolan ranking, you already know this movie has moved up quite a few spots on my ranking. I enjoyed it much more upon second viewing. There's some incredible things here, especially story and theme-wise, and just the exploration of love and all of the emotion that Nolan brings into this movie. I think that you could not ever accuse him of being an emotionless storyteller after Interstellar. Still some logic weirdness with the whole explanation in the third act of the film. Not a big fan of Anne Hathaway's character, but those are somewhat minor gripes compared to all the incredible things that this movie delivers. So overall, I am now a fan of Interstellar. So if you're a fan of Nolan, if you like old classic sci-fi like 2001: A Space Odyssey, definitely check out Interstellar. Prepared for a very intense and emotional ride, and go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Interstellar? Are you a fan of this movie? Do you not like the stuff at the end? Does that kill the whole movie for you? Is this your favorite Nolan movie? Do you like Anne Hathaway's character? Am I on an island with that one? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments section on Interstellar, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button so you can see all of my past Nolan videos, reviews, rankings, and the ones that will eventually come in the future. Very soon, Dunkirk. And with that being said, as always, guys, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.